death, snakes, and public speaking. What do those three things have in common? Biggest fears. For some people, the fear of public speaking trumps the fear of death. If you weren't in one of the earlier sessions this morning, I'm the director of the public speaking program here at the University of Alabama, and most students, if not almost all of the students that take our classes, we have about 2,000 undergraduate students who take public speaking during the academic year. They don't want to be there. They're afraid of public speaking. And they'd much rather be at the dentist than in that lecture or in that lab having to do a speech. So today what I'm going to talk to you about is public speaking. We're going to look at preparation, understanding the message, look at not just preparation in what are the concerns or the concepts that you need to keep in mind as you craft the message that you're going to communicate to your students, but also how do you think of the presentation itself and then practicing or your delivery. And hopefully this will not put you to sleep and this 30 minutes will fly by. I was going to show this video. I hear that my dean is behind me and I don't want to ruin his thunder, but I have another example as well. How many of you sat in classes or lectures and thought to yourself, this is a waste of my time? That is not what you want to do, correct? On the other hand, so you need to think about communicating graciously. How many of you are nervous about teaching your first day of class? If it makes you feel any better, I have been teaching. I taught as a PhD student, and I didn't get my PhD until 2009. I was one of those return to school people. But I've been teaching for about 8 years. In this position, this is my 6th year. And so I lecture to 225 at a time. I also teach grad classes, so my audiences vary. But before every single lecture, I'm nervous. If I weren't nervous, I'd be afraid. Why? For this reason. You all remember the clip? Lacking energy. So the point of public speaking, of kind of figuring out how do you prepare and organize and practice your delivery, is not about not being nervous, but it's about getting those butterflies to fly in formation. That anxiety or that nervousness can actually become enthusiasm, and that's how you need to think of it. I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to try and connect with my audience so that they're excited about the topic. I have taught public speaking, I cannot tell you how many times. Do I have to repeat lectures? Even in a week? Yes, I do. But do I want the students to know if it's the 3rd time that I've taught that lecture or the 1st? I want them to think that I'm fresh, I'm interested in the topic myself, and so I'm bringing that enthusiasm to them. So we want to think about, okay, what are the concepts we need to keep in mind as we start preparing the message? We know we want to bring it to our audience, to our labs, in a way that's exciting and new, somehow relevant to them. Here are how many of you are journalism or English people? We have a couple? Okay, you know these questions, right? This is what you want to think about as you're crafting that message. Who is my audience? Are they freshmen? Are they seniors? Is it a variety of students? What? What is the message itself? What is the reason that it's important? Is it biology, astronomy? But not even that. What is that one specific message or the major top 2 or 3 concepts of that class that I want to get across in that lab time or in that class time? So the content, what? When? How many of you are teaching 8 o'clock in the morning labs? A couple. Or would you rather teach 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Some of you say yes. I've had some of my worst classes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So the time may matter as well. How are you going to present that information depending on the time? Not just the time of day, but how much time do you have? Is it 50 minutes in that lab or is it an hour and a half? You have to really structure your content to get it in that time. How many of you appreciate a lecture that goes 10 minutes over? No one. No one. It's the cardinal sin of teaching or presenting, is not paying attention to the clock and making sure that you're getting the content that they need to know in a great amount of time, even leaving enough time for interaction and questions. Where? Now this goes to reducing your anxiety. I'm sure that many of you are starting to teach next Wednesday, but maybe if you're doing labs, it won't start till the next week. If you're anxious, raise your hand again if you think that you're a little anxious for the first day to teach. Wonderful. If you're anxious, find the room that your lab is going to be in. Go, sit in that space. Does it have natural light? What's the energy in the room? I know that sounds hippy-dippy, but it's not. And we're going to talk about that a little more too, but how is the setup? Where is it? The more you're comfortable in the space, the better it'll be. Why? Every single audience member, you included, or your students, is asking one question every single lab or every single session. What's in this for me? Why should I care? As an instructor, you're going to be a great instructor if you figure out the answer to that question. Why is this important to you? You might not be a biology major, but this is why this concept actually matters in your life or can be interesting. So make it matter. And then how? Are you going to deliver like this guy in Ferris Bueller? Are you going to be one of those horrible people who reads off of every PowerPoint slide? Let's hope you don't do that, right? How are you going to present the information? Is it going to be one-way communication where you're lecturing to them for 50 minutes? Least effective method of teaching. Is it going to be interactive? Are there going to be activities, labs? What are you going to be doing? So this is just to start the process. Now, we move on from here. I'm going to skip this real quick. You want to then take that information. How do we all typically start to prepare for some kind of presentation? How many of you have done a scholarly presentation already? Or business presentation? One of the things that people do, it's a mistake. We know the information in our head because we've been doing it. We created it even maybe. And so to begin to craft that presentation, we open up our computer, our laptop, and open up a blank Prezi or a blank PowerPoint. That's the worst way to craft your information. Go old school and get a pen and a piece of paper and write down, organize. Because part of it is you have to analyze your audience. I've got the content. I know the threes are powerful. I know the 3 main concepts that these students need to walk away with today. Maybe it's the 3 concepts that they need to know so that they can do their homework or so that they can do this lab. But you also want to analyze the audience. What level are they coming into that information? Do you need to review some information? Do you need to extend their knowledge that might be common knowledge already? You don't want to waste their time. So analyze your audience. And analyzing your audience is a lot like playing chess. I give continuing education courses to different groups. But if I'm giving a continuing education course to a group of dentists, it may be the same exact content, but then the next week I'm giving the same content to a group of financial officers from Alabama schools. How am I going to change that up? I'm going to find interesting examples that they can connect with. I'll talk about examples that have to do with the dental office, maybe dentist-patient communication. And when I'm over here talking to the Alabama financial school advisors or officers, I'm going to talk about working in an office environment. Something that can connect to your audience. So analyze them. Read their feedback. Are they tuned in? Are they tuned out? And adjust your message. And then here we're going to go to the organizing. You've heard the old axiom, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then what? Tell them again or tell them what you told them. How many of you think that that might be outdated? Put your hand down. Think about it. You have a very limited amount of time, whether it's 50 minutes or 30 minutes. You want to tell your audience, hey, today, this is what we're going to go over. These are going to be the 3 main concepts that we want you to take away from this. And then as you go from one concept to the next, they can follow you. And then at the end, leave yourself time to wrap it up and cover back over those concepts. That does what? It increases memory, and your students are going to retain more information, if you present it in that way. And that also gives you a format. So here we go. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Have a strong introduction. Kind of have a logical order, that logos that's on your handout, right? That logical order to it so that they can follow along, and then a strong close that recaps what you've gone over so that they will remember it walking away. Now, here's a great analogy for you. And I want this to stick in your mind, which is why I'm going to repeat this a little bit. Let's say that I just come up to you. What's your name? Julianne. I go to Julianne and I say, hey, you want to go on a trip? Okay. What questions might you have? Where are we going? What else? When? Oh, am I paying for it? Great question. Great question. How long? How are we going to get there, right? Okay. Think of it this way. You are kind of the pilot or the driver of this lab or classroom. And so you're wanting them to come along with you on this trip, right? So let's think about how can we prepare that information that we're going to give them in this kind of public speaking format so that they're retaining it. Well, here you go. Instead of asking Julianne if she's just going to go on a trip with me, I'm going to say, hey, Julianne, we're going to go to Atlanta. Would you like to go? Now, Atlanta is going to be my analogy for chemistry. They kind of know generally why they're there, right? They're in psychology lab or public speaking lab. But isn't it going to make you feel better if I also say, hey, Julianne, you know what? We're going to go to Atlanta, but we're really going to Six Flags today. Yes, all right, okay. I get Atlanta, but man, there are a lot of places we can go in Atlanta. But if you're going to give me a target, I can concentrate on that target. Every lab needs to be, what's my target for this lab? Where are we going, right? What are the concepts? Now, let's think of it this way. Where are you from, Julianne? San Diego. Perfect. Perfect. Have you been to Atlanta before? Wonderful. I did not plant this. So I'm going to say to Julianne, hey, you want to go to Atlanta? Sure. Where are we going? We're going to go to Six Flags today. Okay, fine. Now, she's still got a lot of questions, right? How are we going to get there? How long? What's the route? So this is what I'm going to say instead. We're going to Atlanta. We're going to go to Six Flags. Now, Julianne, you have never been to Atlanta. So let me tell you how we're going to get there. We're going to get in my car. I've got an old Volvo station wagon, but it's pretty comfortable. We're going to get in my car, and we're going to get on I-20. Now, today, for 3 hours, we're going to be on I-20. And first, it's going to take us about an hour to get from Atlanta to Birmingham. And then you'll see signs of Birmingham. Then we're going to keep going. 1 more hour to Anniston. Now, there's a great Starbucks in Anniston, so we'll probably stop and get some coffee and, take a break, stretch our legs. Then the last thing we're going to do is from Anniston to Atlanta, it's only about an hour and a half, but then we'll be at Six Flags. Now, what does that do for her? It reduces her anxiety about where in the heck are we going, right? So, in your labs or in your classrooms, that's how you need to structure your material. Yes, you're in biology lab, but this is specifically where we're going today. And these are the 3 ways that we're going to get there. And this is the ultimate end result. If you explain to your students on the front end that that's what you're doing, it reduces their anxiety, and guess what? They're a lot more willing to go along the ride. Because as they're going, they hit Birmingham, they know that they've checked, we're almost there, right? If you've ever sat in church on a Sunday and the preacher has kind of followed that format, he has a great little opening, it's a narrative, it's example, something, then he gives you his topic and his 3 main points. When he gets to main point number 3, your stomach is growling, right? And you're thinking, all right, we're almost done. Where am I going to lunch? Having organization to your content and delivering it allows your audience to follow along. They're going to remember better, and they're going to be happier on the trip. So, in preparation, we look at the presentation. How are you going to do this? The presentation really is about not just the interactivity, how you bore people to death, what you're doing, you know what? Create a handout that's not following your presentation. Let them figure out the notes on their own, but keep the key concepts. How you present. And it's not just about whether you use PowerPoint or Prezi or discussion style or handouts or an activity, but it's about how you present you. How you present that energy, the examples. And so we're going to get into impression management. Now, how many of you sat in the Leading Lab Classes panels this morning? Maybe a good number of you, especially in the first panel. We talked about what? Professionalism a little bit. And dressing up for that first day of lab, because how long does it take to make a first impression? Seconds, not long. You have gone into class, and before the instructors open their mouth, you're what? Sizing them up, yes? Okay, think of it. You're going to be there. You want to be a gracious communicator, communicating very articulately what you know, how you're going to get there, your enthusiasm. But you also think about that presentation of yourself as well. Whoops. All right. Yeah, I do love What Not to Wear BBC. It's great. Your attitude and kind of how you present the information and yourself. Now, here we go. We've got some quizzes going on. 68 to 93% of a message's meaning is nonverbal. Is that a little scary? It might be. It might need to be. It's not just sight alone, but your voice, your pitch, your tone, vocal inflection, volume. Make sure that that sounds engaging. If you've ever read a book to a small child, do you keep it monotone, or do you kind of get excited about something that's happening? That's part of nonverbal communication. Now, here we go. I'm going to give you some options. First impressions. Now, this is all communicating. This is communicating with your class. First day of lab. Let's say they walk in and look at you, sizing you up. How long do you think it takes for them to make that first impression? Almost instantaneously. Some research says that 30 seconds to a minute, people know whether they're going to hire you or not. That's scary, isn't it? What have you had an opportunity to do in 30 seconds to a minute? Say hi, walk. Are you standing up? Are you hiding behind something? Right? Are you engaging? One way to manage those impressions that first day is to kind of be there, be in the space early, feel good about the presentation. Maybe you've run through it if you've got time before class. Meet students at the door, shake their hands, greet them. That reduces anxiety. The more people that you can look in the eye and say hello to, then when they're sitting in the seat, they're not as much of a stranger. So that helps you. 30 seconds to a minute for a job. 7 to 17 seconds, some research says, to make a first impression, and 3 times longer if that first impression is a bad one to undo that impression. And then almost instantaneously. Now, here we go. For you mathematicians, this is going to equal 100%. First impression. You walk in, you see somebody for the first time, you walk into a room for the first time. How much of that first impression do you think comes through sight alone? 80. You said 80? He's right. 80. 80%. Now, what do undergraduates say about that? That is not fair. In public speaking, we ask them to dress for their speeches. A couple of years ago, we realized that we have to do a lecture on what not to wear. Because students come in little bitty teeny tiny dresses and tall heels and rumpled slacks and Oakley, whatever glasses, I don't know, on the back of their neck. So we have to kind of tell them how to dress. Think about that. When they walk in, they're looking at you. So the more knowledge you have, the more you can use that. Maybe it's unfair, but how can you use that to your advantage? How much through hearing? We've already taken up 80%. 10. 10% through hearing, which is back to my lecturing is the least effective method of teaching. 5 for touch, we're just covering all the senses, and 5 through smell and taste. So this is what I want you to do. Turn to the person next to you and shake their hand and give them honest feedback on their handshake. Good, bad, weak, too strong, what? Go. Okay. I see some discussion going on. All right, what is a bad handshake? Describe it. Go ahead. Huh. Non-committal kind of weirdness. Yeah. Okay. So she's saying when they grab just the front part of somebody's like fingertip handshake thing, that's a little awkward. Then some other people were saying weak handshakes. What does that communicate to you? Kind of a limp handshake. Huh? Lack of confidence? Anything else? Yes? It's okay. Okay, so maybe it communicates a lack of interest or enthusiasm getting to meet that person. We see it as weakness, lack of confidence, non-committal. Then you've got the other side of that, which is the death grip. Guys tend to be the worst at this, right? Comes over like women pull their hands away and they have ring imprints everywhere. So you want a nice solid handshake where the web of your hand reaches all the way in and shakes that other individual's hand. Don't let them turn over your hand, just nice solid handshake. And guess what? Here's the secret. 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And you can pull away, right? Because sometimes it gets creepy. But look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, say, so nice to meet you. And you can just kind of step back a little bit. And then people that grab both hands, both hand thing. I know, it's politician, right? It's that kind of weird thing. Okay, and now you're thinking, what does this have to do with communication and public speaking? But this is a great tip for you in that first lab. I know we all get the sexual harassment thing. I'm not asking you to do anything weird. I'm just saying, shake their hands as they're coming in the room, or walk around if they're already in the room a little bit when you get there. Hey, so nice to meet you. Glad you're in my lab. I'm hoping this is going to be a really good semester. It'll reduce some of that anxiety. So 5% through touch, and then 5% through smell and taste, even though I would argue that could be more. That could overpower if it's distracting. So on that front, right, don't wear a lot of cologne to class or perfume. Make sure you have on deodorant. All that good stuff, right? So you don't want to be a distraction. You want them to focus on your message. Your message. Also, what I'm going to ask you to do is to record yourself. You all have these mini computers called telephones now, correct? How many of you have recorded yourself doing a presentation? I know you're going to do it some tomorrow. You've all recorded your voicemail and then listen back to it, and what do you say? That is not me. I do not do that. It is you, and you do that. And one of the things that you need to think about is your verbal fillers, and like, you know. In our last couple of minutes, and I would ask you to be aware, if you use like as a verbal filler, our brain works at a rate of 8 times the speed faster than anyone can speak. The average rate of an English speaker is 175 words per minute. Your brain is running 8 times that speed. So your students are obviously going to be distracted. You're distracted. You're wondering when I'm going to be done. So that's normal. But when we're thinking about the next word, when we're not fully prepared, we insert one of those verbal fillers, and like, or you know. In our last 3 minutes, I'm going to show you a quick video. And I don't know if any of you, as grad students, you're going to hear about it, have heard of a 3-minute thesis. But this is one of the winners of the 3-minute thesis. Now, how many of us are really excited about watching this video? Can you read that topic? Treatment of fungal eye infections using contact lenses and nanoparticles. Are you excited? You're a student. This is your lab instructor. You thrilled? Thrilled. Now, let's see what a good job he does. He's got 3 minutes to talk about this. And what is he doing to connect to the audience and make it interesting? And is he using verbal fillers?
Your eyes are the windows to your soul. Considering how important that is, it just makes sense that your body constantly tries to keep them clean with your tears and your eyelids every time you blink. Despite these efforts, your eyes can still get dirty. That's when you get an eye infection. When this happens, your body needs a little bit of extra help, and that's where I come in. I specialize in dealing with fungal eye infections. Just imagine those nasty green moles that typically grow on your cheese or on your bread, now growing inside your eyes. Left untreated, this can lead to vision loss and even blindness. Unfortunately, the current treatment in the form of an eye drop is not optimal, as most of the drugs quickly get washed or drained away by all the cleaning mechanisms that keep your eyes clean. To offset this, eye drops have to be given every hour until the infection is treated, which can last for at least 2 weeks. My research aims to improve this treatment process by designing a drug delivery system capable of releasing antifungal drugs to the front part of the eye over a long period of time. Contact lenses are perfect for this task for 2 reasons. First, the hydrogel structure, which can be described as a spongy network, has the ability to uptake and release drugs. Secondly, the unique placement on the eye ensures a high quantity of drugs gets released directly to the cornea. The real challenge comes down on how to enable these contact lenses to continuously provide drugs over several days to even a couple of weeks. This way, all you would have to do is wear 1 or 2 contact lenses containing drugs to treat a fungal eye infection. To achieve this, I've modified the ratios of the individual components that make up a contact lens to design a hydrogel material capable of the desired sustained drug release. To further improve this, I've used nanoparticles to first package my drugs into capsules before loading them onto a contact lens. This process is very similar to trying to send an item through the mail. You can't send an...
Nice, right? That's why he's one of the winners, the international contest. What was good about his delivery or his message? How he organized it or delivered it? Both were good. Any specifics? Why it was good? Why was it a strong introduction? Right. So he kind of created that pathos, right? That emotional, why does it matter to me? Guess what were you going to say? Very good. So even though I am not a biochemist or whatever the heck he is, I could understand what he was talking about. He didn't overpower me with crazy slides with a lot of text and big words. His slide was pretty elementary. It made sense. It connected with the audience. He talks about the contact lenses being this kind of delivery mechanism. So as you think about the content that you have to deliver, don't just focus on that material, but how you're going to deliver it in a way that is going to connect with your students and your audience. Now, I'm going to leave you with this, as I know my time is up. I would encourage you all to make use of a resource that we have on campus. And as graduate students, we would love to see you. We've created a speaking studio, and I know that you all are going to be doing research presentations many, many, many times in the next couple of years. You can come to speaking studio at ua.edu. Scroll down, you saw some pictures of us at the top. This was a 3-minute thesis, entry last year and actually won the University of Alabama competition. And we have an application here to make an appointment. So you can make an appointment, come in, we record you, and give you immediate feedback on presentations. You can do group or single presentations or speeches and get feedback with a consultant. So I'm going to leave you with these words: snakes, death, and public speaking. Death is unavoidable. It's inevitable. Snakes are largely avoidable if you're paying attention. But public speaking can be an opportunity. It can be an opportunity for you as an academic, as a student, and it can be an opportunity for your students to learn. So I hope that you take something away from this today and make it an opportunity, and we would love to be support for you over the next couple of years.